Started. This meeting is for the neighborhood preservation, homeless and housing, and we will be discussing the new fire codes that will be possibly adopted based on the New York State amendments. With me, I have Counselor Hogan, Counselor Nave, myself, Counselor Jones-Rouser, and Deputy Commissioner Jake Dishaw, and others. So, Jake, if you could just fill us in on the new, what's changing throughout the state, inclusive of what we just learned last week with the sprinkler systems in the row houses or attached housing.
I wasn't prepared to speak to that at the moment. So the legislation we submitted was to make amendments to our local law that reflect language under New York State Code Rules and Regulations, Part 1203, which is how local municipalities provide for administering and enforcing the New York State Uniform Code. I have not had time to go through the new changes of the New York State Code. We've had zero training on it. I'm not able to speak to 99% of it at this time. They just made an announcement a few weeks ago that a rulemaking decision is final. It goes into effect January 1st. I'm happy to do that later on with other expert individuals from fire prevention and from code enforcement, but I don't have that information in front of me. I mean, I'll try to answer any questions you have. I was also out Friday while this was scheduled, so I wasn't as prepared as I normally am for these meetings. So
no
apologize.
problem. Nope, it's fine.
But what I am prepared to do, what I do have in front of me that I was able to get together, is to go through what updates we're making to our local law. A lot of it is just language. New language to be added for the purpose of, again, amending our local code so that it meets the requirements of the state changes to Title 19. Some of it's as little as adding 5 words that says we can accept electronic construction documents, period. I can go through all of that. I apologize if you weren't sure what that legislation was exactly, but changes to the local law don't necessarily reflect like the changes to the state code, for example. It basically empowers towns, villages, and cities to administer the state law at the local level. The codes change in the code book cycles, which have the details to the different provisions on, code requirements. So think of the local law as kind of the guidelines on how to administer it, but then like the details in the recipe are really in the code books that change from time to time. So like we're going from a 2020 version to a 2025 version. I don't even have a copy of it yet. We have a digital view only copy.
All right, so what do you have for us then?
Maybe before we get into that, Jake, so explain to me the procedural issue here. I mean, the state adopts codes that are different than what they've had since 2020, correct?
Well, New York State has what's known as the Uniform Code and Energy Code. Under Section 381 of Executive Law, the Secretary of State, promulgates the rules and regulations for that. But for those to be enforced at the local level by a town, a village, a city like Syracuse, we have to adopt a model local law to administer those laws at the local level. So we've always had a law. I believe the last time it was updated was 2011-ish. There's been some stuff that's maybe added in between, but that was like a major rewrite.
So we have to opt into every provision, or we have a choice of not opting in? How does that work?
No, we can't. We have to meet the minimum standards, the minimum codes. We can become more restrictive.
But we can't become less restrictive, obviously.
That's correct. So we have a local law called local law number 5, 2011 of the City of Syracuse, a local law providing for the administration and enforcement of the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code. And it just has a bunch of different sections, it has definitions, different inspection requirements, and I can go through what we're adding.
That's okay with you, Counselor Jonah Rouser? I mean,
Yeah.
I'll just give a summary, but we're adding language about construction documents being able to be received by electronic media. We've always, we accept that in practice, but we're missing some verbiage on the plans having electronic marking, seal and stamp from a design professional, which we require, we do check for that, but we need to put those few words into our local law. The next one is just some more details and clarifications for the requirements on construction documents that are submitted. We are compliant in many areas with what the state wants, but there are some little things that need to be added from, sorry, I'm just looking at kind of a checklist. Written statement indicating compliance with the energy code. Like, again, these are things that our reviewers and staff look for and get, but they're not reflected in black and white words in our local law. So we're just adding it, because New York State says we have to add it. It has to be there. So a lot of this is just kind of clarifying, cleaning up, adding, making sure that we're staying up to date with what Title 19 and what 1203, Part 1203, which is what local municipalities have to follow. It's a section on how local municipalities enforce and administer the state code.
So, and when you keep saying the state code, are you talking about the future state code that's going to go into effect soon? Or are you talking about current state code?
Yeah, if you were to take out the new code that's coming out in January, we would still have to add this language. So they're kind of two different things, although they're very much related, because that's the code that we'll be enforcing is the 2025 version, which is just an updated version of what we're already on. So there are some changes and that will be included, obviously, but a lot of it will remain the same as what we're enforcing today. But everything that we're adding to our local law is really outside of what's happening in the 2025 code books. It's more administrative on the local level, like checklists of what we need to make sure are included on a construction document when submitted. Like, for instance, what I just said, a written statement indicating compliance with the energy code. We do that, we do look for that, we make sure it's there, but again, we're adding this language that's, I guess, missing, is a good way to put it. I keep looking at law department because they're drafting this in conjunction with us, so Danielle's confirming, so making sure I'm saying all this correctly. But another area that was missing was establish street grades and proposed finished grades, and if applicable, flood hazard areas, floodways, and design flood elevations. Again, these are things that we definitely look for, that we check for, that we make sure are in compliance, but that verbiage, those words I just read, are not in the local law right now. So we need to add that to a section of our local law. And I can continue going through, but a lot of the comments and or language additions are very similar to that. The next one is our local law currently does not include language that documents us being able to have remote inspections, meaning virtual, which the state allows for. So we need to add 3 words to include remote inspections.
And what type of inspections would fall under the ability to be remote?
The state really allows for any. We don't have to. It's just something that we have to add in case we have, they allow it, the state allows it. We don't have to do it if we don't want to. We did some virtual inspections during COVID. As permit office remained open, we didn't stop business. We used it a lot then. Now our entire staff is back in the office, and we want everybody physically there. So in practice, at the moment, really none, but we need to add that language because that's what the state kind of code states, that you can have remote inspection, so we need to include that in our local law.
That's residential and commercial.
Yes.
Okay.
So how do you do that? The remote, I
So-
know it's physically what you do. You film?
Yeah, it's kind of like FaceTime, but we use our permit software that has like a secure connection network, so we do have the ability to call somebody through that software. They answer, it gets recorded, and they can show you around different things. But like I said, procedurally, our office is not utilizing that. We did use it during COVID only, and that was it.
Michael Collins, Commissioner for Neighborhood and Business Development. I love the questions that you're starting with, because we don't have, with the exception of those right in front of us, historically people don't want to get into the weeds of what the codes are. So your curiosity about this is fun for those of us that geek out on it all day. The simplest way to be able to describe what the legislation does is, while the New York State defines the details of the code as the jurisdiction with authority, we must demonstrate to New York State that we have the laws in place in the way that they dictate for us to administer it. So this isn't the code itself. It's simply, how are we guaranteeing to New York State that we are enforcing what they have written as code? Is that the smoothest way for me to? There's probably smoother ways, but that's as simple as I can put it. So that's the distinction between why you've got excellent questions around, hey, what are these other things that are coming down the pipe?
Yeah.
And we're not necessarily going to see those reflected here, because this is really just in the administration. How do we go about making sure that we can do that work?
Okay. And so with that being said, because again, I know some of the new legislation that will be coming down as far as like the all electric development and those things. So we do have the battery storage facility that will possibly come online somewhere. Who knows where yet, but so I guess one of my main concerns are we able to write more into and maybe this is not for this, but write more into protections for things of that nature.
So we do, to Jake's point earlier to Councilor Hogan's question, we do have the ability as a municipality to become more restrictive than the existing code. We can add to it. That would be separate legislation, since this has to do with how we administer the code as opposed to what the code itself specifically is. And again, I'm looking to law, I'm seeing law nodding, so I'm okay.
Okay, all right. Well, I would just have to admit that majority of my questions was per the new legislation, so.
Yeah. And it's definitely something that not only fire prevention, but with Chief Mons that I've discussed, because there are a lot of new robust rules in the new code regarding energy storage systems, which the project that you bring up, which isn't, is kind of postponed for the time being, or until it's heard, but they're agreeing to meet the 2025 fire code standards for that. But as Commissioner stated, there are ways for local government to adopt more restrictive rules above and beyond what the state minimum requirements are. One thing, the state does kind of put out a rulemaking activities summary sheet of activities, and it's kind of similar to like what I'm explaining, summarizing our local code. They just have like little blurbs of like what's being added. I can leave this with you or send it to you electronically, but it kind of just goes through, because structurally or legally what they did was repeal the old versions and then adopt the new versions, and then they list all their activity, and they kind of list out all the different sections and the new definitions that are added. But again, yeah, I haven't even explored all of these yet,
Yeah.
as of today.
Okay, no problem. I know you were away, so I was waiting for you.
Yeah, and we can definitely, as we get closer to the new year, or towards the end of this calendar year, as we have more time to go through that, the state is making all certified New York State code officials go through what they call advanced in-service training. All of that is only covering the new code, meaning we're getting specific training only on the new code updates, but we have the whole calendar year of 2026 to get that done. Most people like myself will get that training at a conference that we attend in calendar year 2026, which I usually go to our local one through our central New York State building officials chapter. That's in April for 3 days down at the hotel next to the mall, for example. And we'll get 12 hours of training only on the new code. So it will be some time, unless I can read through it all and understand it all, before I can really understand everything, the scope of the magnitude of everything that's changed. But I mean, obviously I have a good sense of some of it. We've been aware of, a new code coming for some time now. They've been talking about it for the last year, but everything that's in there and how it should be enforced and what the interpretation is, I don't have all of that in front of me right now.
How much involvement local officials across the state getting into writing this new code?
Well, I think a lot.
Did they reach out to you, Jake?
Yeah, and we have an opportunity to comment. One thing I know that that's continues to be real big with building official or building just builders. I mean, is that there was a big push to put sprinklers in residential.
Yeah, that's what I was.
And so there's things like that obviously the state level itself is pushing for carbon-free, less gas emission. More, energy efficient homes. So certainly statewide, there was a comment period where anybody could really submit things. But yes.
Well, Jake, I wanted to ask, how can we make the public more aware? Like recently, I was going back and forth with a constituent about a garage, and they didn't want to go through codes. They didn't want to go through an architectural plan. They just want to do it their way. I believe we have to educate the public, as I'm learning, about putting up apartments, about adding structures, that you need permits, that you do need fire inspections, and this. So I believe that some people are cutting the corners, and I think some of the people probably don't even live in our city.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to address that. How can we educate what we're trying to do?
Well, generally speaking, anybody that's dealing with commercial construction activity, we want them and they need to be working with a design professional. Where we run into problems is where people choose not to follow that route. And that's a different bucket than residential homeowners that are trying to make improvements on their house, right? Like we will kind of guide homeowners through weekend projects like rebuilding some steps, things like that. But when you said garage, I'm just assuming you meant like auto repair.
No, this person lives on the north side, and I had a friend that wanted to and sent me sketches of this apartment, and she got upset. Why call it codes? I need a professional architecture. I said, well, and I looked in the, I did research, and I go, yes, you do need it. You can't just like anyone do a sketch, and it has to be inspected. You could deal with electrical. You could have a fire.
Sure.
You want to know the safety of the structure. So there's a lot of things that go into this, and I think the public probably are not aware of. And I think like when we do the yearly guide, I think we have to send this out to all citizens to know like what the law is, because a lot of people don't know.
Sure. No, I understand that. And it is something that we deal with weekly, educating the public as they come into our office. We have our healthy housing event annually where we have our permits team there. Obviously, we're not capturing everybody in the region and or city attending that event, but
No, but it's also a language barrier. In
yeah.
Northside, there's a language barrier.
there's that. These rules have also been in effect for, I don't know, you've needed permits at the city for much longer than I've been alive.
Yeah, so the healthy housing event that Deputy Commissioner mentioned, we've been doing that for about 10 years, give or take.
Yeah, yep.
And we do a lot of press with that, guided tour, so that we can take people through a residential home and look at, what code infractions are existing right there, but also that a lot of that conversation has to do about what it would take to be able to repair. Where do you need a permit? Where do you not? Where do you need your paint certification? Where do you not? So we do that. We would love to have a larger marketing budget, but at the moment, really, the focus has really got to be on the personnel to move along the permits. Our inspectors are in the field every day, and so they do a lot of education. They're not looking to come down on people, but they do a lot of education just as they're walking across unpermitted projects. And then our staff at the counter do. We just, at the moment, we don't have the resources to be able to do a full marketing campaign towards it. That said, all the different events that we can, and Fire just last weekend had their big open house. Code enforcement had a table there. So we're taking advantage of the opportunities that present themselves, and would love to grow to the point where we can be super proactive about it. But that's going to be a few years out.
As a counselor now, a lot of people try to bypass, or they say, well, we don't know. So maybe the media can grasp, maybe social media.
And we are aware of the fact that, there's unpermitted construction work happening every day, as there is across the nation. Building an entire garage is an example that is at the sort of extreme end of it. We don't, typically what we see is stuff that's indoors, or, somebody doing a roof over the weekend, that kind of thing.
One other thing I wanted to bring up, I mentioned this summary of rulemaking activity, but the state does have contacts who can issue you statements and analysis on their on the final rulemaking, but it also has sections in here on assessments of public comment received. Just something to mention that I can leave with you. But again, that's in regards to the actual text changes going from the 2020 state code to the 2025 version that will come into effect January 1.
Okay, so based on what you're presenting today, what is one of the least, the minor change, and then what's the major change?
Yeah, so I went through construction documents received by electronic media, adding some language on requirements for construction documents, again, like what needs to be listed in there, like the statement on the energy code compliance. I mentioned the remote inspections already. We also have to add some language around specific instances in which a final certificate of occupancy can be issued. One part that we found was missing, again, not in our enforcement or actual administration, but in the law, was that we didn't list out carbon monoxide detection. That wasn't added when Amanda's law was adopted. So we need to add that in to our local law section on certificate of occupancy, so it states carbon monoxide. Again, in practice, that's definitely a requirement. We're not missing that, it's just the language isn't there. Operating permits, we have to add some language on operating permits. A lot of our operating permits, or really all of them, are issued by our fire prevention office. So these are, and a lot of these things are things we don't even have here, like fruit and crop ripening facility, fumigation and insecticidal fogging facility. But again, these are things that we have to add.
Which is fine, because you never know down the line.
Sugar house,
Yeah.
So I think we're generally compliant with most of this stuff. It's just cleaning up and clarifying language to cover everything that's in New York code rule and regulation and basically copying that into our local law.
Now, going back to what you said with the, like when someone submits certain renderings, that it has like the stamps or whatever, like, is that local, or that's not state?
No, it's both. So there are rules around engineers and architects and how they have to stamp and seal drawings and when they have to.
Well, okay, so I guess my question is, am I able to submit my own drawing? Do I have to use an architect for something?
It depends on what you're doing. So there's threshold on dollar amount of project. If there's structural changes regarding building that requires design professional. So like if you were to come in for a set of stairs and a porch, like you could submit a drawing as long as it complies. And if it wasn't like the biggest deck in the world that was over $20,000, like we could issue a permit. But if it was some more elaborate like addition or something that's like major structural work changes, like a lot of people want to do open floor concept in a home, for example. And a lot of people don't know the difference between load bearing and a not load bearing wall, and they just want to knock the wall out.
Yep.
And it's like, well, you're carrying the load right down the center of this house here. Like, you can't just open this wall up without putting a new beam up.
Yeah.
So, like, it's things like that where, like, you need a design professional to do that.
Yeah.
Like, we're not just going to let you blow out a load-bearing wall in your house because you want to open up your living room and your dining room. Does that answer the question?
Yes, yeah.
We try to work with our residential homeowners to allow them to do their weekend warrior projects and things that they need to do to make improvements on their homes. Commercial buildings open to the public, like, we want qualified professionals, not only designing that stuff, but doing the work. Generally, that's how we try to work it. But there are certain requirements based on dollar amount and the type of work on what triggers design professional or not.
Okay.
There are those who claim to be contractors but are not licensed. You come across that?
Well, so the city and the state don't have a general license for a contractor. We
No, but
license.
some might not. We had an incident
Yeah.
where
I mean, so we license HVAC, electrical. We do require insurance from contractors when they're part of a permit. So they have to show workers' comp, disability, liability. They have to submit that we have to have their up-to-date insurance forms on file. But again, that's not really a license, but I think that kind of shows that they're legitimate if you're carrying, insurances for that.
some don't. And it's hard because we had an incident in my district where a gentleman came out to me, he's Vietnamese, didn't understand why he was getting sued by a law firm. It turned out the person he hired, one of his employees, fell and got hurt. He had no insurance. So now he comes to me for help. And I said, I think you got to defend yourself, get an attorney, and prove that this person was not a lawyer, was not a licensed contractor. And so when this person got hurt, he says, well, I don't have insurance, just go sue the guy.
Right.
So these things do happen. Oh, I know we can't.
Yeah, it's
control it.
the fly-by-night kind of contractors that come in and want to do your roof or your driveway and cash only, right? Yeah, they're not
He
pulling
trusted him
permits.
'cause
They're
he was
not.
Vietnamese as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so, any other questions?
No, if we could have a conversation after the meeting, Jake, I'd appreciate it on a couple issues.
Yeah. The only other thing we're adding, just a final summary on what we're adding locally, we're adding some language around record keeping for all condition assessment reports being received. We're adding some stuff on climatic and geographic design criteria and parking garage assessments. And that covers it.
Go into those first two just a little bit. What was the first one?
Record keeping?
Record keeping. Okay, because I've had individuals who've complained to me about having to send in the same document on multiple occasions, that were said that someone told them, like, after, I don't know, 15 days or something, if they didn't have their full full, I'll say packet, complete, that they don't hold on to stuff that, so then they had to start over, all over again, submitting the
Well,
stuff.
offline, if you can give me the specifics, but generally speaking, everything we keep is in a digital record keeping system. So we will make people reapply if things are expired. But you know, we've pulled applications and just kind of like renewed the application with the same documents that we've already had. We've done that. So yeah, if you want to get me the specifics on that, I can look into it. But
It's been some months.
Okay.
They were done with it by then, but they were complaining.
yeah, I mean, we take in everything digitally now, so it's there.
Yeah.
The time of coming in with paper is really over with.
Okay, and what was the second one?
Garage, like parking garage
No,
assessments,
before that one.
geographic
Yeah,
and
what's the- what
climate
is-
design criteria. That is we the state mandates that we make available the climate and geographic design criteria in the uniform code. So this includes is publishing and showing like what the ground snow load is, the wind design load, how deep your footers have to be, meaning like where your frost line is based on region in the state, because it differs if you're downstate. Again, we have this stuff, it's just not in our local law.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So no more questions?
No.
No more information?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to make sure I cover what we submitted legislation for.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize. I wasn't thinking like we were going to talk about.
It's probably my fault because.
But we can do that in the
with-
future. But I would give it some time so we can get more.
Yeah, knowing
we're
that
all
this
still
other
learning.
law was coming down,
Yeah.
it just kind of got meshed together for me anyway, and making
What
wanting
I
to make
would-
sure that we're ahead of.
What
you
I would
maybe-
recommend
some
is
things?
maybe if you can wait until after like Q1 of 2026, we'll have a lot better understanding of everything that's in the new code. I'm happy to do it before then too. We're going to go through all of our classes by then. Like I go in April. I don't know when Ryan's doing his, but you know,
So, I
between
guess
now and
the-
then, I'm going to try to learn everything I can.
One of the main concerns for me is is this battery storage facility, because they're currently in the process of trying to get their approvals. And so they're doing community dialogue right now, depending on how that goes. I guess the major concern is the risk of fires. And so I know me and Chief Mons have been talking, and I guess we're wanting to look at the possible addition to like a suppression system for that. And so didn't know would that fit into this at all as far as like the added stuff. And these are something that like, because they're already in public comment, I need to be able to speak to that if that was something that could happen.
Sure. What I can maybe do is provide you the link to the 2025 fire code.
Oh, I have it. I know.
Yeah, so the
But this
applicant.
would be in addition.
Right. You know, I suppose you could possibly add a condition that they do something. But the only other way we can enforce something that's not in like the fire code is to adopt a more restrictive local standard, which the state has to be part of that approval process for. They have to sign off on us having a more restrictive local law.
So if we were to say, based on this, we want to add this, then it has to go back to them before we have the approval for that.
To mandate it, yes, if you can get them to agree to a condition as part of a special use permit, maybe you could talk to Joe Barry about that. Sorry, Danielle, I'm kind of.
That's fine. Danielle Smith, Assistant Corporation Counsel. Yeah, I think Joe Barry would be the person that you'd want to speak to on those kinds of issues.
Okay.
But I will say, I mean, there were a number of additions to fire safety around battery storage facilities because of actual real events. So the state doesn't strictly prohibit them. They just have a lot of rules around the safety requirements with them. So, but we can take a look at that and continue to evaluate that things. But their building permits, if we get to that point, they're electing to use that, even if they come in before the new year, they're electing to use that as the standard. So we and the fire department would review their plans based on the minimum requirements in the 2025 fire code.
Yeah.
Above and beyond that, if it's a special use permit, defer to Joe Barry on if conditions
The city
can be
still
added.
taking recyclable batteries, lithium, in the blue bins? They were one time.
I don't think so, no.
We're not doing it
I mean, I know
anymore.
Ann Fordak's not here, but I see her saying no.
I would say no, because I know Wegmans will take them, and I think someplace sell batteries still,
Right.
but if we have to look for a facility, certainly we have available space in my district, in our industrial area.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and close. All right, so we'll adjourn this meeting. If I could have a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, second, all right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jake and MBD Department, Law Department. Appreciate it, and we look forward to the next meeting on the full New York State legislation. So, all right.